Khazars. Who were they? Well, the Khazars were a nomadic Turkic people who, around the late 6th century, built a powerful empire that stretched across what we now know as southeastern Russia, southern Ukraine, Crimea, and Kazakhstan. Imagine a major trading hub that connected Eastern Europe with southwestern Asia. That's what Khazaria was, a bustling crossroads on the Silk Road, linking China, the Middle East, and the emerging power of Kievan Rus. For about 300 years, from around 650 to 965 CE, the Khazars ruled this vast region, acting as a buffer state between the Byzantine Empire and various nomadic tribes, as well as the expanding Islamic caliphates. Initially, they even served as Byzantium's allies against the Sasanian Empire. But alliances shifted, and by around 900, Byzantium began to undermine Khazaria, encouraging other tribes to weaken its control over key regions like Crimea and the Caucasus. Then came the 960s. The ruler of Kievan Rus, Sviatoslav I, alongside his allies, launched a series of attacks that culminated in the conquest of the Khazar capital, Atil. This marked the end of Khazaria as an independent state, and its territories were absorbed into the growing Rus domain. Now, let's talk about the Khazars themselves. Determining their origins and what language they spoke is tricky because no written records in their own language have survived. They were a diverse, polyethnic, and multilingual society. Their native religion is believed to have been Tengrism, similar to other Turkic peoples. But Khazaria was also a melting pot of various beliefs: pagan, Tengrist, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim. Interestingly, in the 8th century, the Khazar ruling elite is said to have converted to Judaism. However, how widespread this conversion was remains a topic of debate. Some Khazar groups, like the Khazars, eventually joined the ancient Hungarians in the 9th century. After the fall of their empire, the fate of the Khazars is shrouded in mystery. Some theories suggest they mixed with different peoples, contributing to the ethnogenesis of groups like the Khazars, Hungarians, Kazakhs, and even the Mountain Jews. There's also a controversial theory that modern Ashkenazi Jews might have Khazar ancestry, though linguistic and genetic studies don't strongly support this idea. This theory, while still occasionally discussed, is viewed skeptically by most scholars and sometimes tied to anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist rhetoric. One enduring legacy of the Khazars is in the name of the Caspian Sea, still called the Khazar Sea in some Turkic languages. So, what's in a name? The etymology of Khazar is debated. Some scholars think it might come from a Turkic root meaning to roam or to oppress, while others suggest connections to the Roman title, Caesar. The name even appears in ancient Chinese records, though with some linguistic twists. After converting to Judaism, it's believed that the Khazars adopted the Hebrew script, and their chancellery probably used Hebrew for official correspondence, even though they spoke a Turkic language. And now let's explore their linguistics and origins. Understanding the Khazars' language is tricky because no original Khazar records have survived, and their empire was a mix of many different peoples and languages. The ruling elite likely spoke an eastern variety of Shaz Turkic, while the subject tribes spoke various forms of Lir Turkic, including Oghuric, which is related to Bulgaric, Chuvash, and Hunnish. Persian historian Istakri noted that the Khazar language was unique, different from any other known tongue of the time. Alano, as was also widely spoken within the empire. The royal language of the Khazars remained Eastern Common Turkic, much like how Mongol was used by the rulers of the Golden Horde alongside the Quapkak Turkic spoken by most of their subjects. Similarly, Oghuric functioned as one of the languages of government. Tracing their origins often involves analyzing the possible etymologies of the name, Khazar. The tribes that formed the Khazar Empire were not a single ethnic group, but a collection of various steppe nomads and peoples who came under a core Turkic leadership. Early Turkic groups like the Oghuric peoples, including the Saragurs, Ogurs, Onagurs, and Bulgars, were part of the TL Confederation. They were driven westward by the Sabirs, who fled from the Asian Avars and started settling in the Volga-Caspian Pontic zone as early as the 4th century CE. Historical records mention their presence in the western Eurasian steppes by 463. These groups likely originated from Mongolia and South Siberia after the fall of the Hunnic/Xiongnu nomadic polities, a tribal federation led by these Turks, which included Iranian, Proto-Mongolic, Uralic, and Paleo-Siberian clans, defeated the Central Asian Avars in 552 and moved westward, bringing along other nomads from Sogdiana. The ruling family of this federation might have come from the Ashina clan of the Western Turkic Khaganate. While some scholars, like Konstantin Zuckerman, question the Ashina's role, others, like Peter Golden, find strong evidence for their significant role in forming the Khazar State. By 651, their leader, Yipishikui, might have been ousted or killed, leading to further westward expansion. They reached the land of the Akitsaroy, important Byzantine allies against Attila's Huns. An early Khazar state began forming around 630, following the collapse of the larger Göktürk Khaganate. Göktürk armies had pushed into the Volga region by 549, displacing the Avars, who fled to the Hungarian plain. The Ashina clan overthrew the Rurans in 552, establishing the Göktürk Khaganate. By 568, these Göktürks were seeking an alliance with Byzantium to attack Persia. After the death of the Western Turkic leader Tang, who helped Byzantium defeat the Sasanian army, the Western Turkic Khaganate split into two federations. These were collectively known as the 10 Arrows, on Oak, which briefly challenged Tang hegemony. Meanwhile, Old Great Bulgaria under Kubrat and the Nashibi subconfederation rose in the west. The Khazars, led by the Ashina, solidified their control in the western steppes, and after General Su Dingfang's victory in 657, Khazar dominance was established. By around 670, a properly constituted Khazar Khaganate emerged, becoming the westernmost successor state of the Göktürk Khaganate. This state, often referred to as the Pax Khazarica, became an international trading hub, ensuring safe passage for merchants across western Eurasia. The high status of the Khazar Empire is reflected in the Farsnama, which states that the Sasanian Shah placed the Khazar king on an equal footing with the kings of China and Byzantium, a testament to their significant reputation. And now let's dive into the culture and institutions of the Khazar state. The Khazars developed a dual kingship governance structure, a system common among Turkic nomads, which included a Shazabak and a Khagan. This structure might have been influenced by their conversion to Judaism. Arabic sources refer to the lesser king as Isa and the greater king as the Khazar Zakhan. The Isa handled military affairs, while the Zakhan had a sacral role, less involved in daily governance. The Zakhan was chosen from the Khazar house of notables and underwent an initiation ritual where he was nearly strangled until he declared the number of years he wished to reign. Upon the completion of his term, he was executed by the nobles. When the deputy ruler needed to meet the greater king, he approached with great ceremony, prostrating himself and lighting a purifying fire while waiting to be summoned. Royal burials were also elaborate. At one time, travelers had to bow before the ruler's tomb and walk away on foot. Later, the burial site was hidden under rerouted river water to prevent disturbance by evil spirits in future generations. This type of royal burial ground, called kurik, is typical of Inner Asian peoples. Both the Isa and the Zakhan converted to Judaism in the 8th century, while the rest of the population likely followed the old Turkic religion. The ruling elite of Khazaria, like the later Singasids of the Golden Horde, were a small group that differed ethnically and linguistically from their subjects, mainly Alano-Az and Oghuric Turkic tribes. The Khazar Khagans took wives and concubines from the subject populations and were protected by a Khwarezmian guard corps called the Eurasian. They also employed mercenaries, as noted by Al-Masudi. The Khazars had a centralized fiscal administration and a standing army of 7,000 to 12,000 men, which could be expanded by inducting reserves from the nobles' retinues. Some sources suggest the permanent standing army could number up to 100,000. The Khazars exacted tribute from 25 to 30 different nations and tribes across vast territories. The Khazar armies were led by the Khagan Bek, assisted by officers known as Tarkans. When the Bek dispatched troops, they were not allowed to retreat. Any returning soldiers faced execution if defeated. Settlements were governed by officials known as Tuduns. In Byzantine settlements in southern Crimea, a Tudun might be appointed even if the town was under another polity's influence. Other Khazar officials included dignitaries referred to by Ibn Fodlan as Joyshiger and Kuner, though their roles remain unclear. The population of the Khazar Khaganate was diverse, comprising 25 to 28 distinct ethnic groups aside from the ruling elite. The elite consisted of 9 tribes or clans, themselves ethnically mixed, each likely controlling a province or principality. There was a possible class distinction between white Khazars and black Khazars. Al-Akhri described the white Khazars as handsome with reddish hair, white skin, and blue eyes, while the black Khazars were swarthy, almost black, resembling Indians. Many Turkic nations had similar political divisions, and scholars believe Al-Akhri might have misunderstood these names. Early Arab sources generally described Khazars as having white skin, blue eyes, and reddish hair. The ethnonym Ashina in Tang Chinese annals may reflect an Eastern Iranian or Tocharian word for blue or dark-colored. This distinction survived the Khazar Empire's collapse. Later Russian chronicles mention Khazars as white ogres and Magyars as black ogres during the Magyarization of Hungary. Physical remains, such as skulls from Sacral, show a mix of Slavic, other European, and a few Mongolian types, reflecting the Khazar Empire's diverse population. And now let's delve into the economy of the Khazar Khaganate. The Khazars established a thriving economic system that was quite advanced for its time. The backbone of their economy was the import and export of goods, with significant revenues coming from taxes on these transactions. Among the unique products of the Khazar economy was isinglass, a substance derived from fish bladders used in various industries. What set the Khazars apart from other nomadic steppe societies was their development of a self-sufficient domestic economy known as the Saltovo economy. This blended traditional pastoralism with extensive agriculture. The Khazars raised sheep and cattle, which they exported, and they also took advantage of the rich fishing grounds of the Volga River. Additionally, the Khazars engaged in craft manufacturing. They reaped significant profits from taxing international trade due to their control over major trade routes. A significant aspect of the Khazar economy was the slave trade. The Khazars were one of the 2 major suppliers of slaves to the Abbasid Caliphate, alongside the Iranian Samanid emirs. They captured Slavs and other tribespeople from the northern Eurasian steppes, selling them into slavery in the Muslim world. This trade was so profitable that it allowed the Khazars to maintain a standing army of Krym Muslim troops. The capital of Khazaria, Atil, was a microcosm of the empire's diversity and economic activity. Atil was divided into 2 distinct areas: Khorasan on the western bank of the Volga, where the king and his Khazar elite resided with a retinue of about 4,000 attendants, and Adopar on the eastern bank, which housed Jews, Christians, Muslims, slaves, craftsmen, and foreign merchants. The Khazar Khaganate played a crucial role in trade between Europe and the Muslim world during the early Middle Ages. Captives from Viking raids in Europe, including Ireland, were transported to places like Hedeby or Brno in Scandinavia. From there, they traveled along the Volga trade route through Khazaria to Russia, where they were sold to Muslim merchants in exchange for Arab silver dirhams and silk. These goods have been found in archaeological sites like Birka, Wallin, and Dublin. This trade route remained prominent until the 10th century, when it was replaced by routes through Volga Bulgaria, Kharazm, and the Samanid Empire. The Khazar elite spent their winters in the capital city and moved to their fields from spring to late autumn. Surrounding the capital was a large irrigated greenbelt, nourished by channels from the Volga River. This area, stretching about 60 miles, featured meadows and vineyards. The Khazars imposed customs duties on traders and collected tribute and tithes from 25 to 30 different tribes. These levies included items like sable skins, squirrel pelts, swords, dirhams, hides, wax, honey, and livestock, depending on the region. To manage trade disputes, the Khazars established a commercial tribunal in Atil. This tribunal comprised 7 judges, with 2 representing each of the major monotheistic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and 1 representing the pagans. This system ensured that disputes were handled fairly and efficiently, maintaining the stability of Khazar trade.